Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD, and today we're going to talk about Pixar's Onwards. Spoilers ahead. My partner and I weren't able to see Onward in theaters during the theatrical release. As we were getting closer to the release, we had discussed when we wanted to see it in theaters and agreed that we would wait until late the second week or sometime in the third week of the theatrical release to go to the theaters. Basically, neither of us really like dealing with the crowds. So unless it's a movie we are both super jazzed about, we tend to wait a few weeks into the release to go and see it. Now, by the time that this point had come along, we were sort of already starting to hunker down based on the coronavirus outbreak. And so we were really trying to cut out activities that we didn't think were essential or where there could be large groups of people, including a movie theater. So we never got to see it in theaters. This was, of course, pretty disappointing, but it didn't take too long for Disney to announce that they were actually going to release it on Disney+. And Friday, April 3rd, which was the Disney Plus release date, at least in America, didn't really seem that far away for us. We had already waited a few weeks, what was another few weeks. There was an option several weeks ago to purchase a digital copy of Onward for about $20, but again, it was just a few weeks off until the April 3rd Disney Plus release, which we already pay for, so we decided to go ahead and wait. Overall, my partner and I both really liked the movie. I think my partner probably liked it more than I did. While I really enjoyed it and I liked watching it and I definitely would watch it again, I was kind of disappointed in it. For being a Pixar release, and those really tend to tug at my heartstrings, and I'm not a big crier, but I get very close during Pixar movies, I really didn't have a moment like this in that movie. And I don't think my partner did either. When you compare Onward to the catalog of Pixar movies, I just think it's a little bit of a weak offering. Towards the beginning, when Ian is playing back the recording of his dad and talking to it as if that was a conversation, that was pretty sad, and that was probably the saddest I got, and that definitely did tug at my heartstrings a bit, but I never really felt that emotion again. Now, a lot of people are saying that the plot is simple and predictable, and to some extent I agree, but that does not bother me. I don't go and watch Pixar movies for intellectually stimulating, complicated plots. I go because they really get at the heart of human emotion. And I think that the ending of Onward definitely tried to get there. It was really sweet seeing Ian realize that his big brother Barley had really been there for his whole life and been there for him and acted a little bit like that father figure. And then it was super nice to see him sacrifice his time with his dad in order for Barley to have that last moment in order to make up for his terrible fourth and last memory of his dad. And to some extent, I think that ending was a little bit unexpected. When you look back at the movie with hindsight, you can see them building to that point, building to where Barley will get his last words with his dad. But the fact that Ian gives that up to me was surprising. And I think as you're going through the course of the movie, the whole adventure is about both of them getting to spend time with their dad. And seeing Ian not do that, I do think was a bit of a twist. Although at the end of the day, this is definitely not my favorite Pixar film. It doesn't crack my top 5 or my top 10 or probably even my top half. This honestly might be in the bottom third for me personally, and I totally get it if you think that this is the best Pixar film that's ever come out. I see that. I did really enjoy it, and you can tell the love and care that they put into the movie. So there were so many amazing puns on food items and signs throughout the movie that were brilliant. And the voice acting I thought was very good. Obviously, when you have Tom Holland, Chris Pratt, Octavia Spencer, you knew that was going to be out of the park. I really enjoyed watching the mom figure come into her own and really become her own warrior and now have the friend in the Manticore so they can go off and do adventurous fun things together. I thought that was a pretty nice side plot that could be easily overlooked. I also really liked and appreciated that at Ian's high school, sort of the cool kid group that he was going to invite to his birthday party included a character who clearly used forearm crutches, so there was a bit more disability representation than we're used to seeing. That being said, of course, it still was very much a side character, and I hope that there is more prominent disability representation in the future, but this is absolutely a great first step, and I'll take it. So on the internet, there's a lot of comparison between Onward and Frozen, being that these are both movies about siblings. And I see that, and I understand. At the same time, they're just so fundamentally different to me. And I think for me, this comes down to the fact that Onward is Pixar and Frozen is Disney, and I do have different expectations for them, and they also go about the story process pretty differently, in my opinion. While Frozen is, of course, about that sisterly bond in the end, that's the big reveal of that movie, is it is about sisterly love, versus Onward starts off being clearly a brother adventure. The other thing is that Frozen takes on these big, massive stereotypes not only for female leads, but for princesses, and that's of course not something that Onward has to dabble in at all. I won't speak for my partner, but part of the reason that I wasn't super jazzed to go see Onward on opening night and make sure I saw it right away was the way that it was marketed. So I was very excited for the brother adventure aspect of the movie, but the way that it was presented in which, well, your father is dead and you could have one more day with him, I thought was really not great and potentially psychologically damaging. And I can't imagine what it would feel like for individuals, especially children who had lost their father. And the marketing for this movie was just like, oh, well, you could spend one more day with him. And it was this huge cliffhanger. So I did appreciate the way that they resolved that in the movie. I think that it probably was a more healthy psychological representation, letting Barley have a couple minutes and then Ian gets to live that experience through Barley. Of course, all individuals are going to view this differently, and I hope that people didn't find it too triggering or too socially irresponsible or anything like that. But yeah, the marketing for it was pretty off-putting to me as a general message. But true to Pixar form, the marketing doesn't tell you the whole story, and the whole story and the film itself and the plot were really great and very well done, and I thought that they handled the loss aspect fairly well. One other thing that I go back and forth on is the technology aspect. So the whole premise of the movie is that this used to be a land full of magic, but as technologies were invented and life got easier, magic got phased out because it was hard. And I think that's a really interesting plot device, and I get it, but it is a little bit annoying coming from an engineering background where I think technology is actually super magical. When you think about airplanes, for example, the fact that we can get in a hunk of metal and fly across seas or fly across the country, etc., for thousands of miles, that's pretty insane to me. I think in life, of course, there's a balance of using technology and using what's available to you to get where you want to go and still working hard for your goals. And I just thought it was really interesting that the premise of the movie was sat upon the fact that, well, now that technology is available, no one wanted to work hard at magic anymore. Also, I have never played Dungeons & Dragons, so I can imagine that if you're one of those people who loves that franchise, that this movie probably meant a lot more to you. I think there were probably a ton of Easter eggs that I didn't pick up on. I did see in the credits, and yes, I stay and read all of the credits, even in the theaters, and I try to at home as well, that at the end they thanked D&D for using the gelatinous cube monsters. So I take it that that gelatinous cube is a big foe in the D&D community. So I really liked how that was incorporated in, and I think that with more appreciation of D&D, I would have a greater appreciation for more of the details in the film. So overall, I definitely enjoyed Onward. I thought that the message was great. The way that they wrapped up the plot, the ending specifically, I thought was really well done and pretty touching and somewhat unexpected. I think when you go into it, you expect a 16-year-old who spent all day trying to get this magic to meet his dad to then meet his dad, and for him to instead pivot his plot, so where he's allowing Barley to talk to his dad. I thought that was really nice, and that was huge and super well thought out, and I really appreciated it. The animation, of course, was beautiful, and the attention to detail was insane, and a lot of those details I can't even appreciate as someone who doesn't play Dungeons & Dragons or other similar games. That being said, it just isn't very high in my personal Pixar lineup, at least not after having watched it once. But the quality of the Pixar films is insane, and that's a super high bar, so definitely not a diss on the movie overall. So what did you think about Onward? Did you enjoy it? Do you find yourself comparing it to Frozen as far as that sort of sibling story? And if you're a D&D player, please let me know what other awesome Easter eggs were in there, or what things you really appreciated that the film represented. And did you spot the Pizza Planet truck? I think I found it, but I'm gonna have to do some Googling to make sure the thing I thought was the Pizza Planet truck was the Pizza Planet truck. I hope you're all staying safe and protecting both your physical and your mental well-being during this time of the COVID-19 outbreak and probable self-quarantine depending on where you are in the world. And while we may not have magic to work on, at least we do have plenty of technology to keep us entertained during this time. Until next time, we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.